So great to be here. We're going to share a few slides with you, and I promise not too many. um, but we are on the path with you. As Outfront Solutions, our firm, we've been providing branding, positioning, and messaging and marketing strategies, go-to-market strategies for companies and for people, right? Helping people with their personal brands. And we've been fortunate enough to work with some of the greatest leaders in Silicon Valley and in the country on building their personal brands. We've worked with Steve Jobs. We've worked with Avi Tevanian, who was the CTO of Apple, Eric Schmidt, that guy that was running Google for some time, Scott McNeely, Carly Fiorina, female leader. When she was the CEO of HP, we were defining her personal brand platform. So it was, we've had some really incredible experiences with big leaders and very visible leaders like that, and then a ton of leaders in between, heads of middle market companies, heads of divisions, anyone who's really looking to get out in the world and ignite their personal brand. Your personal brand goes with you everywhere you go. So it's a phenomenal investment to make, right, in your own personal brand. So Jeanine and I have Outfront Solutions, and that's the next slide. And that's the firm and the platform from which we provide these types of services to folks. And as I mentioned, we've had a lot of incredible experiences in doing so. In the realm of branding, we'll just use ourselves as an example really quickly. You see our framework there, those concentric circles. It's called an ikigai, the way that it's formed up. And ikigai is a Japanese term saying, kind of telling you what a company or person's meaning is. And so we're really focused on results, and we're focused on results with purpose. And we love standing alongside female leaders. It's a deep passion of ours. We have a practice area all focused on the advancement of women. And we dedicate, and it's not to kind of blow our own horns or what have you, but we literally dedicate and volunteer probably a solid, 5 to 10 hours a week in even just volunteering women's advancement. In addition to doing things like this and providing services through our firm, we're a part of also How Women Lead. We have, I am the advisor to a firm called How Women Invest, and we're getting women to invest in other women, female founders and leaders. So clearly a deep passion of ours to be with you here today. So I think I've said enough about that and why we're doing it. We're just super, we need to change the game. We don't need to just move the needle. We need to change the game. And how we do it is by helping each other. And in the beautiful credo of Leadership Global, we need to celebrate each other. We need to amplify each other. And this is a great way to do it, is defining personal brands and in amplifying each other's personal brands. So that's us. That's why we're doing it. Please stay in touch with us and each other on LinkedIn or, through the Leadership Global Network. It's really important that we are in community, providing each other feedback and or support along the way. And then along the course of this discussion today and the case study example that we show you, please feel free to put questions in the chat. Okay. And either we'll hit them real time or we'll get to them at the end. Okay. So we'll do that for sure. So today's session is focusing on branding, positioning, and messaging for your personal brand. And we're going to take you through a real life example of an incredible consultant who's consulted to a lot of the biggest brands in the world and innovation centers. And so we thought, ooh, perfect example for this community, just because there's so many of you that have a coaching or consulting business. We're going to take you through.
If I could suggest that you format the slides in presentation format so that
Yes.
it's a little bit easier for everyone to see, that would be lovely.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Jeanine's on that.
I am looking for the tool here.
Mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So while she's doing that, I'll just explain to you what we're going to go through. So we're going to take you through the Brown Foundation process that is used to create your foundational materials, right? So each and every one of us should have an introduction for ourselves, an elevator pitch, a bio, a resume, a speaker sheet. You should have a platform for your social media, and even your visual branding, your headshot is really, really important to the process. Okay. So we're going to kind of talk you through, the foundation that we talk you through is that foundation for all of these materials. And then we're going to talk you through some of the types of materials that do form this baseline of positioning messaging. And so what we do with our clients, and we recommend that you all do, is pull together the results of your personality tests. Those are phenomenal guidelines for you to gather a lot of these insights. It's so hard to kind of look in the mirror and do this for yourself, but the personality test can be really helpful. So Leadership Global, when you're a member, you get to do this predictive index diagnostic review, and it's amazing. So we highly recommend that you do that and go through that process. It provides great insights. But there are lots and lots of other personality tests. There's Myers-Briggs, there's Enneagram, there's all these different tools, right? You guys are all aware of them because so many of you are coaches. But really, those are great ways to take a look in the mirror and pull through some of your strongest traits. I also really like the DeMartini test because it does kind of reflect back to you some of your greatest skills and abilities by just going through this kind of, diagnostic. So take the tests, take a look at those. Those are great insights. You want to pull together all the media mentions and features you've had, content that you've produced, and then, having conversations with colleagues, trusted colleagues and friends. It's okay to reach out and say, hey, what do you think I'm best at? How do you think that I excel as a leader? And, where are those areas? So that's kind of a bit of the foundation. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jeanine to take us further.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everybody. So good to see you today. Thanks for joining us. This consultant that we did this project for was like so many of us. She's working for everybody else, but not updating her own brand because she's so busy. So it's really nice to have someone come in and help you. It's also nice to have that external perspective. Also, what this process is that we're going to take you through is the same process we really use for branding. There's some differences to it, but when we wanted to help women, we adapted our traditional branding methods, which we've used for the biggest technology companies like Accenture, HP, Booz Allen, many of them. So if you look over to the right in the red box, it says client challenges. We like to start by looking externally. What does the market need? What is it telling you, even more importantly, because you're already doing your job, you're already coaching people. What are the things, for example, the problems that they come to you with most? And the second thing we look at is that, okay, what are you offering? What are you really great at, right? That you're bringing forward? What are the capabilities people are buying from you? And we'll grab these things and we'll put them in buckets to look at them. And then we look at a focus area because we don't always want to promote everything we do. Nicole and I have been in business a really long time. We've been business partners for 20 years. We do a lot of different things, but we don't necessarily want to sell all those things to everybody. We're kind of focused in, and as Nicole said, on technology, on cannabis, on women's advancement. And so we target our offerings to those markets. And then in other areas, the results you've achieved. I know you've all achieved great results, but we don't often gather them all in one place, so they're handy to talk about as we're illustrating what we're good at. And then personal brand attributes are really about you. And if we were doing this for a really big company, we'd look at the leadership and we'd say, what are you bringing forward to the world? And we say the same thing to you as coaches or whatever business leader you're doing. What is it that you're bringing forward, and what are your most unique brand attributes that we really want to amplify? In the case of this case study, this woman is incredibly talented and so many things. But it was all about focusing, deciding what things to amplify, how to move forward with the types of clients she wanted to get. So that's what the task at hand was. So here's an example of client challenges, right? Why people would come to this particular consultant. Right. So they came many times because they didn't have a clear vision for the future. They knew where they were going, but they didn't know how to articulate it. They didn't know the pathway there, and they needed guidance. A lot of people came to this person because she's so good at getting things done. She could marshal teams together, really outlay. She's a master leader, a master process person. So execution is a huge thing. She's also in technology, and as you probably know, it's really hard to execute in technology, among other things. The other things they would come to her for is because they were frustrated. They were being stymied in their advancement, let's say, in innovation. They weren't getting there fast enough. Things weren't, occurring, so they had a frustration level. Some came because of retention, that they couldn't retain people. The good people were leaving. This happens a lot in technology, especially now with a big focus on attracting and retaining talent because it's scarce in technology. And another thing they came to her for was waste. They knew that there was a lot of waste in their process and what they were creating, and how could she be efficient? How could she improve operational efficiency for them? And then context is all about contextualizing across an organization. As you probably know, you can have a great idea, but until you put it forward in a way that everybody can embrace, it was a problem. So these were the client challenges that she faced.
And again, no matter where you sit within an organization, no matter what type of leader you are, your audience, your end audience has challenges, right? And we weren't going to write a single word down until we knew exactly what we needed to address and how for this particular leader. Because otherwise you really, creating a personal brand in a vacuum and just reflecting out maybe some of your personality traits, that's not going to do it. That's not going to land. It's not going to move the needle. All we focused on is what's going to move the needle for engagement, and what is that call to action that leader is looking for. Maybe it's to read her book and some of her thought leadership or articles. Maybe it's to book a meeting with her. All of those things. So we're literally backing out of that and looking at what are the challenges that her clients are facing.
So I think what's great about what Nicole just brought up is that this isn't just for her to get herself together and to write good stuff. It's going to influence everything across her whole marketing plan. The types of content she places, the types of social posts she does, everything. So this is super useful. And when you look at, okay, my client's got a problem with execution, how do I help? So you list those things out, they become your capabilities. So let's look look, here they are, capabilities. So what were the capabilities that she brought forward, right? So she personally has an immense vision because she's extremely, she's both academically trained, she's practically trained, she's worked for major companies. She knew how to set vision, and she knew how to bring along teams to set vision, which was amazing. She's great at coaching, training, and facilitating. That's how she moves that needle. She's extremely strategic. So everything's accruing towards a goal, and we're like that too. So we got along really well in that sense. She is a thought leader, and she does a lot of speaking and content. So this is an enormous capability. You probably know it's hard to create a lot of content, but this person was just is a factory of content. Transformation is a huge thing in technology. You may or may not know, but transformation is basically enabling business operations through technology. And she has vast knowledge about that and could really help advise how to transform with the greatest ROI and sales growth, et cetera. She also was really schooled in governance, so she can advise companies on how to set up their boards, how to operate. She's very comfortable working with boards. So these are all huge strengths for her. And the ones, even though she might have another 10 strengths, which she does, these are the ones where she wanted to focus. These are the ones that could help achieve the goals for the clients.
And she was nicely aligned by bringing forth these capabilities. She's nicely aligned with the client that she's selling into, right? So she's targeting that C-level executive, and she's showing that's how she knows how to show up there. These capabilities came through, and they're also, reflecting back to those client challenges. So this is just all in alignment, once again, to drive people to engage with her in the ways that she would like. And it had,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It had to make sense, because we had to help her connect the dots. Because as Jeanine mentioned, this woman is a factory of constructs and content and all these different things. Well, it had to line up and make sense to tell her personal story in a boiled down way. And that wasn't easy. It was a good challenge for all of us, even working with her.
Focus is a huge challenge for all of us because we only have so many hours in every day, right? And oops, sorry about that. And we do so many things. So this exercise that we're going through now is really helpful for you with focus as well. And there's the focus areas. So if you take what people need, you take what you're really good at, right? And then you know who you're talking to. You say, okay, how do I group what I do into areas that people can understand? People always tell us to get out of the box, but in many ways with sales, you have to get into the box so that people can understand what they're buying from you, right? So in the case of this and these focus areas, so operations, she can sell to operations. As we talked before, she's great with operational efficiency. She gets technology. She understands how to eliminate waste. She can de-risk things. So operations is a great place for her to focus. She is science-based in everything she does with technology. So she really, it's also what fuels her future, her thought leadership content. So she's very focused on working with scientists and universities. That's an area she wanted to focus on. Research kind of goes in there. She is a constant researcher. It's what fuels her thought leadership. And technology and engineering is that's probably one of the biggest areas of her endeavors, of her sales. She's a consultant across the board in operations, in science, in research, in technology and engineering. So that kind of is a practice area. And then, as Nicole mentioned, she really works with C-suite leaders. That's where the change really happens. So we knew you're going to have to focus really as a customer base on C-suite, technology engineering, right, and operations. And the consulting and the research and the science supports all of that. Anything you'd like to add, Nicole, to this particular slide?
No, just that, believe it or and you don't have to have, you don't have to have 6, 5, even 4 focus areas. I mean, the best is if you can boil it down to 3, just a few, right? But because she had such a vast career and these are the areas where we knew if she went in through these doors, she would be successful, right? Knowing what client challenges she needed to address in all of these functional areas.
Exactly. So here is the personal brand attributes, right? These are things, one of the things that we do, whether it's a branding for the largest companies or for a person, is we talk to colleagues, we ask for a list of people who you feel comfortable with letting us talk to. And sometimes it's clients, sometimes it's leaders in other areas, sometimes it's former colleagues. And we will do an interview of about 30 minutes. And we'll ask them some specific questions. We'll ask them about their experience with meeting you, what surprised them about you, what they think your greatest talents are. There's ways to interview to get to this versus people telling you what you want to hear. So that's part of the artistry of interviewing or asking people is, so think about that when you're asking for feedback. But in all the interviews that we did with this particular person, we had a lot of things. We probably had a list of about 30, 40 attributes, personal brand attributes for her. And what we did is we looked through all of them and we osmosed everything that we heard, and we boiled them down to these 6. And again, we did 6 with her. We don't always, as Nicole said, we try to get less, but in this case we went with 6. And these are the things that literally every single person, whether it was a colleague, a former client, whoever, she's really fast. She's got a global view. It's really broad. That's what helps with her vision. She's super authentic. So people love working with her and they really feel comfortable with her, which is Linda and I were talking earlier, when you are working with people, you want to amplify what they're best at, what their best personal attributes are. So, and you will never stamp out your personal attributes, even if you don't like them. So what you've got to do is build on them and find the way to articulate them in a positive way. She's authentic. She's super intuitive. She's a visionary. She's compassionate. And as I said, she's fast. So these were the ones that really boiled to the top. And by the way, we did have probably about 6 personality tests to look at also to overlay on top of the interviews that we had done. Is there anything you'd like to add, Nick, on this one?
No, actually, I just want to punctuate something you just said, which was that these brand attributes came from doing a number of personality tests. So do the tests, right? Get that information. But also, it was other people that we interviewed on her behalf. You can, again, send an email if, get that insight into what do you think are my strongest personal attributes. And then once again, we're equating that to what are the client needs? Who is she speaking to? Right? And what's going to resonate the most? And honestly, with this personal leader, a female leader, she's selling into more so a lot of times men within the organization. So you also have to consider, gender and the language that will work with men and women. I think a lot of times we may skew one way or another. And for her, in her case, it was really important that she could speak to the male audience, who is typically more so her buyer a lot of times. So, yeah.
Yeah, we think about that quite a lot. In fundraising, it's a very big thing too. We'll talk about that another time. So then here is the collection of the results. Again, remember when I said, you want to organize the results you've achieved for people in such a way that it's accessible to you, that you don't have to try to remember, oh, wait, I know I did this. I know it was super successful. I think I need to tell this story. If you collect the key stories that illustrate your capabilities, your successes, the capabilities that you want to sell, in an easy to look at format, then you go, oh yeah, I'm going to tell them the autonomous driving story. This is perfect. I'll tell them about UCSF Med Center. So that's what we did. We collected these stories. These are basically case studies. And case studies do not have to be huge, long things that are 100 pages. It's what did they need? What was the problem? what was the solution and what were the results of that solution. It's that simple. And you can so tell the story in that way, gather your story so that you can illustrate, and that's what this represents here. It's great, by the way, also to put these on your website and then to use in social to talk about your results that you've done. And it's true that sometimes your clients don't want you to use their names in case studies. That's okay. I worked for an autonomous driving company that was in autonomous driving. Here's what their issues were. Here's what I did, and here's what happened as a result. Everyone understands that. So I'm going to move on from here. So all of this rolls up into value propositions, and value propositions are the value you deliver against a particular audience, a capability, a client need, right? So we take all of those things together and we say, okay, we're going to need a value proposition for operational excellence. That'll take care of that whole operational side of things, and the waste, the leadership, the efficiency. And we need a value proposition for leadership because all of those capabilities we talked about before, working with teams and bringing them, through processes, it all goes under this heading of leadership. And then there's this innovation, because almost everything she did was about the future, was about creating the future, right? And by the way, sometimes that's how these things come up. She was an innovation leader, no question. But at the very beginning, she may not have positioned herself that way, right? She was more probably focused on capabilities and what I can do and problem solving. But in fact, the biggest thing was about creating innovation. So that became something that we wanted to do a value proposition against. And then transformation, which is the technology transformation that I was talking about, that's its very own unique animal. And so we boiled everything down into these 4 value propositions. And now, do you want to say something?
I wanted to add absolutely that with these value propositions, we were able to help her craft them in such a way that she put them out into the world in a very bold and forward way. And I will say that all of you as leaders are probably not stepping in to your talents and your greatness as much as you should be, right? It's often hard to do. But when we reflected back on this leader and we said, listen, these are all the value propositions that we came to through this whole process, and we see you as a master of innovation across leadership, across digital transfer, these areas. At first, she was like, whoa, that's a big role to step into. Ultimately, she did, and it played phenomenally well. And so we've been telling you that, you got to focus on results. Well, I'll get to a bit of a punchline here, and that is that she was able to bring on new clients exactly in the realm, solving the client needs we identified at those high levels, in the focus areas. And she really stepped forward into her great talents and used this as a pillar and platform across everything. The website, social media. I mean, these are all the attributes that she consistently puts out into the world. And thankfully, she got great receptivity with it.
Yeah. So her website leads with it. And I want to add to what Nicole said by just saying that pretty much 100% of the women, no matter how incredible they are, that we work with, are amazed when we put it together and we go, look, this is what we see. They go, is that really me? And then when they see it, they get it, and it becomes, they step into it. And almost all of the women we've worked with in this capacity have gone on in either board seats, they've gotten CEO roles, and it's because of their willingness to step in, like Nicole said. It's a hard thing to do,
I mean, it makes us giddy. Like we were working with this one leader, and she was already super senior at Nextdoor, and then she took another role. I mean, mind blowing. So, and then as Jeanine said, there's boards and these different roles, and it's just so amazing. I feel like a lot of times, even if you're just willing to step into defining your personal brand and taking the time to do so and honoring your talents and your gifts and focusing on these different areas, it manifests a great outcome, and then we'll co-manifest with you. So step
We're big
out.
manifestors. Okay, so we're going to hand it over to Nicole to start talking about some of our value props.
Yeah, so basically, as you saw, those different value propositions, so one of them being leadership, what we did is we broke it down a bit. So we said that this leader, she's a leadership consultant and visionary, delivering proven processes for a leadership product to fuel innovation, performance, and revenue in complex technical environments. Every single one of those words is so specific, right? It's been boiled down and super thoughtfully chosen to reflect this value proposition that this leader brings. And then what we did in the blue boxes, in what is a super important exercise to go through, is to kind of start to use some examples here, right? How she does it, right? So this is what she brings. This is how she does it. Okay. She helps teams improve impact, value, and sales by building trust and unifying behind a vision. Okay. That's powerful stuff. And then we always pepper in proof points so that even in conversation, if this leader wants to use it, there are all kinds of proof points underlying it. So another one's innovation. This is another example of a value proposition. She's helping organizations create technology innovation to attract and retain top talent, create committed partnerships, develop a compelling, sophisticated global vision, right? This goes back to the client needs. We have how she does it in the blue boxes, and bam, lots of proof points underneath, so that when you're storytelling around this particular value proposition, you have meat behind it. You say, "Oh, so this is how I brought innovation to this research organization, SRI." So yeah, always having those proof points at your fingertips. Sometimes we forget all that we do, right? The only time that you really remember all that you've done is when you take another look at your CV or something like that. But it's great to have it like this, right? Boiled up in these value propositions. Get your proof points down on paper, and those top ones you want to hit on. Here's the transformation value proposition. Again, each word thoughtfully chosen to describe what we mean by how she delivers on transformation. So she helps organizations build technology transformation capacity to reach revenue, productivity, and operational goals. Again, high level, we know who the market is, we know what she brings, and here are a number of proof points.
So I saw all of so many capabilities and stuff you were putting in the chats, and that's really excellent. This is the stuff. Just put it in a format like this and think it through, and it's always easy to grab. So I know we want to get to discussion soon, so you want to...
Yeah, so this is the operational excellence value proposition. Again, each word thoughtfully chosen for this particular leader around the value prop. And and then one of the things that we wanted to end on is it's really important to have your elevator, right? Your elevator pitch. How is it that you quickly and succinctly describe yourself? So this is how this particular leader described herself, and we have to get there through keywords. She inspires leaders to drive innovation, operational excellence through vision, strategy, and technology transformation by identifying necessary changes in complex technical environments and building full capacity leadership. It's the name. We obfuscated the name of her product. She helps companies achieve world-class performance, significant cost savings, and added revenue. There's benefits. It's how she does it. It's who she's about. Her value propositions are brought through.
So we typically will do 25, 50, and 100-word descriptions, and we'll have them handy. And so we recommend that to you too. It just makes your life easier. And the short one, the 25-word, is really your elevator pitch. It's also your Zoom introduction, right? So think about that too. It falls out of all these other things. Just like the title of an article comes last, the descriptions come last. Once you know all those other things, they fall right into place in a description. Oh, these are resources that we had. I'm afraid I don't know how to go backwards. So, but these are resources that we've used in the personality side, right? And most importantly, you have this resource through Leadership Global. I just took it, the identity, the index, and it was fantastic. And it takes like 5 minutes to do, and you immediately know so much. It really nailed me very effectively.
All right, so let's jump into questions. Here's how to stay in conversation with us outside of this conversation here. Yeah.
So I just want to thank Nicole and Jeanine for bringing such great insight into the conversation. But I know that we do have a lot of thought leaders, we have a lot of coaches, we have a lot of people that are entrepreneurs and business owners that are part of the call. And I wanted to offer you guys an opportunity to bat around a couple ideas with Nicole and Jeanine live here on the call, and then definitely connect with them afterwards to maybe go through what you're thinking your unique value proposition is, what your focus areas are, what your brand personality looks like, and check in with them and see if they would position it slightly differently, if they would strengthen certain areas, if they would recast it slightly differently. So with that, Elise, do you have any thoughts about your particular focus areas, or Kendall or Nita, Patsy, Precious, Susan? Would love for you guys to jump in and say, well, this is how I think I would apply this framework to what I do.
Okay, well, I'll jump in. I appreciated your question about your focus areas, because I know what I have. I'm actually about to launch next week. So I'm not running like a chicken with my head cut off, but I'm trying to pull my pieces together and make sure I'm in place. And I know part of one of my lines on my site is that I foster connection, belonging, and oneness. And then, so I was like, because I didn't do the test that you're speaking of, but I'm just wondering sometimes if that gives enough, because I feel like one of the bigger parts of me is you have to experience me to appreciate me. In other words, my experience is more effective sometimes than what I'm able to share, but that's going to have to change. And I'm just wondering how to apply that, because I don't want the words to be too soft, in the sense that it doesn't really have anything concrete that a person is working with. So I was just playing around with words. And
Precious, the one thing before we hear from the experts here, Nicole and Jeanine, is just that I saw that in the chat and I thought, well, that's kind of what Leadership Global does too. So interestingly, I would just want to ensure that whatever it is that you use as your platform is really unique to you and couldn't be applied to a membership program, a online coaching platform, a Facebook community, 1,000 other ways that you can work towards this idea of community and oneness, for instance. So I think the more specific you're able to be and the more unique that you're able to be, the more differentiated they will find your service as compared to other ways of solving those same problems.
I appreciate that, because my other 3 words are embrace, evolve, and transcend. That's part of my positioning statement: embracing diversity, evolving consciousness, and transcending paradigms. So I just have these words, and it's just like, I want to make sure that I appreciate the format you have to make sure that I am being able to be differentiated and promoted in the best way possible. What say ye?
I'd like to jump in on the words for a section, because these are great words. However, what do they mean to me as the audience? Remember, we started by talking about clients, right? So the word connection, I have my interpretation of what I think connection is. But if I get connection, what will happen for me? So connect the result to the connection. Connections so that you can develop greater relationships with your clients. Belonging so that people trust you more. I mean, I don't know if you have to connect the results of that work to the things that I am looking for as your client, right? So I don't know that and oneness to me is very similar, like to belonging. And maybe I'm not sure that oneness would be something that I would aspire to. Belonging maybe, but oneness maybe feels less differentiated for me as a client, right? So I think if you really focus on the pain points that you're solving for your clients and connect them with your belief system, which is what this sounds more like, and belief systems are great, but they're more validators for who you are as opposed to the tip of the spear where you get people interested in what you do, right? So you've heard of the customer journey. There's things that get people go, oh, I better look into that. Then there's things that go where you go, oh, I've looked into that. Sounds interesting. I'd like to know more. And then the third one is I'm interested in that. And I know that I'm making the right decision because I've been validated in my decision to look at this, right? So what I'm getting at is that you want words, you want benefits at the very top. Jeanine, you're going to be super successful. You're going to know how to, connect with people and sell them things better, maybe, like that at the very top. So that would be some of my comments on those words.
Thank you.
And I would like to add to that. So absolutely echoing what Jeanine said, addressing your audience's pain points and providing these benefit statements. What do they get, in the end from working with you? So you're reflecting back to them, hey, I see you. I understand what you're facing and what you're addressing, and here are the benefits that I bring. Now, the way that you differentiate is go back to those personality tests, go back to the questionnaires that you've asked the people around you. What do I uniquely bring? What am I a rock star at? Right? And bring forth some of those traits. And then also don't hesitate to use specific examples, right? We, in the beginning of our talk today, we said we've worked with a lot of the biggest leaders in the world. We've worked with a lot of the largest corporations in the world. So we're quickly establishing that we're experts in our field, right? And your examples of things that you've done and results that you've brought, even if they're slightly out of context of what you're doing now, is really, here's how I set for it as a leader and alongside these other leaders to bring them to this result in a past experience. So I highly encourage you to, how you do it is a differentiator. Your personal attributes is a differentiator, and, and really speaking to what your audience needs.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stories that you've created with your clients.
Yeah.
So something that I really focused in on that you said is, so what I do is I own an etiquette company. And so for adults, it's called Elise McVeigh's Life Camp. And I do a lot of speaking. And then for children, it's Mrs. McVeigh's Manners, which is a division of that. And so I go into schools and have other workshops for children with manners. I like that you said, everything that's on there, focus on who your audience is, because so many people do have different things that they do. Maybe they do speaking, maybe they have a book, and it just depends on who you're talking to as a client, as a potential client. I think that that's something that's really helpful. So maybe you even have a few of these presentations or sheets that can apply to whoever that audience is. I mean, hopefully most businesses, everything ties in together, but you do have different dimensions, I'd say. A lot of businesses are multifaceted, where you have this section and that section. So I appreciated that you focused on that.
That's a great point. So when we do a sales deck for either ourselves or for our clients, there's a core of the things that we do, and the core of our capabilities and our success stories and whatever. But there's a part of that that is targeted specifically to each client group. So that's a huge point. And you want to create a flexibility in your own minds of starting with, okay, this is the kind of client, probably has this kind of problem. Let me start by talking about this, but even more importantly, getting them engaged in what their problems are. So think about that too in your sales process. It relates to this only as you start applying things.
Love it. What
Was
else?
that helpful, Elise?
Absolutely, yes. And I just thought that was, such a great point. And I appreciated that you all brought that up. So yes, thank you.
Has anybody been stuck anywhere in this process? Like, I don't really know who I'm talking to, or I really don't know how to
Patsy has her hand up, so I'd love to call on Patsy. Patsy, it looks like you want to ask a question. I see your hand up.
So I'm in the middle of selling my house and moving. So I joined leadership because I feel like our businesses are so multifaceted, and I know that for me, I want to do everything at once and I can't. So the thing that I find really the most useful, you shared, everything was amazing, but I am going to send out a letter to my people and just ask them, what do I do uniquely bring, and what am I a rock star at? What I have to bring to the world is helping women dress as their most authentic, beautiful self in the colors they wear, which easily draws people to attract to them. And I bring confidence and approachability and, lots of stuff. But I know I'm emerging into a way bigger arena. And so it's overwhelming to try to do all this at once. So I'm just now filling out the form that Linda sent. And so I'm giving myself the grace to, okay, let's do this thing and see what people say. Like, what are the words they use? For me, that's going to be a better foundation. I have a foundation. I'm already doing my work. I'm international as a stylist, but I want to go, okay, what do I do at the next level? And so just having you zero in on that today was helpful for me to think I can start here. And so I think sometimes I get overwhelmed to have so many great ideas. I know where I'm going. I know my vision. I know the work I do makes a huge difference in people's lives. But as the owner of the business, I want to figure out how to strategically, in a big way, have a big plan to be able to do it in a process that I could just grow with it and change as I go and not be overwhelmed. So thank you for that. I mean, it may seem simple to you, but it's like, oh, I could do this. This is awesome. So thank you.
I love what Nina just wrote in the chat too. She said, we've talked about a couple things, not just about the value that you provide in the world, but the pain that you're solving for people. So addressing your audience pain points and providing benefit statements that really differentiate you is important. And then Nita said, don't forget to talk in their language. It's important to use the words that your clients use. And I thought that was brilliant too. So we just want to point out a couple really good points that were made in the chat.
But I was going to say
the other thing.
Go ahead. I just quickly want to emphasize that Patsy had brought up the words people use. Listen hard when they talk to you and use their words as everybody's saying. Totally.
Yeah. And one other thing I also wanted to mention was that with this example that we just used, and with all the leaders that we work with, we don't look at who they are today. We look at who we're crafting messaging and setting intention and manifesting and looking at client needs down the line, right? So we're not setting that goalpost for right here. Oh, no. That's an upward trajectory, right? To achieving something that's out here. And in our minds, it may be a few months out, it may be a year out, and maybe a couple years out, but it's super important to message and step into what it is that, how do I see myself down the road? and as a successful person in what I'm doing. And the language around that should be where you're shooting to be, right? That language needs to be at that level because that, and in and around, where it is that your success, your objectives. It's as if you're, languaging to nail the objectives that you want. So think about that. And one way to do it, kind of a little cheap way to do it, is maybe look at some aspirational leaders who are at a level or achieving the success that you would like to, and see how they language around their own personal brand, right? Like, maybe it depends on who it is, but find some aspirational people, see how they're languaging, and learn from that.
Thank you. I have another client, so I have to run, but thank you so much today, ladies.
Good to see you, Patsy. Thanks
Very
for joining
welcome.
us.
Thank you for participating.
And it was great having Jeanine and Nicole both walk us through some of the, I think, most pivotal points in crafting our own personal brands and being very, very careful about, again, who our ideal clients are, what language they use, what our unique personality attributes are, what our unique superpowers are, and taking all of those inputs and thinking very strategically and carefully around how do we create messaging around that uniquely differentiates us. If you would like to connect with Jeanine and Nicole to work through that for your business, then you can see the contact information that they both offered. And I cannot recommend time with Jeanine and Nicole more strongly. They both are phenomenal experts, and you've seen their client roster, everyone from Steve Jobs to Carly Fiorina. I mean, good night. These are phenomenal powerhouse legends that they've worked with. Yeah. So
That's amazing.
And you
don't
can't just put words in
reach
their
out.
mouths. You
Yeah.
have to be careful.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of today's conversation, and we look forward to seeing you next month. So be sure to register for this same program for next month, where we'll be tackling a whole different aspect of marketing. So thank you guys so much, and we look forward to speaking to you then.